And the last one I want to discuss, Kyle Williams and Efton Chism. And I feel like there's just constantly this hysteria about Kyle Williams' roster spot, as if he was not a third-round pick who has not done anything wrong and is in a room full of guys that have NFL resumes and like could very much be contributors this season, especially without Kayshon Boutte. Whether or not he's wide receiver 6 or 7, whatever, I think it's more important to understand. I think it's more important to understand that these guys are playing roles, right? When you talk about Efton Chism, this is someone who spent all of last season learning every single position on the roster, on the receiving depth chart. So he learned X, he learned Z, he learned F. Because as a player who was undrafted and really needed to carve out a roster spot, being able to plug in for everybody was a huge advantage for him and something he needed to do to even make it on the field. And when he did, we saw the guy blocks his ass off. He's sturdier. Like he's not as tall as Kyle Williams, but he's thicker. So when you talk about some of those Mac Hollins duties, it makes a lot of sense to have Efton in that role because one, he did that last season and is comfortable with it. Freaking Mac Hollins' protege, and he just has the kind of body type, I think, that's more conducive to blocking, even though I think Kyle Williams is an exceptional blocker. Kyle last season was almost exclusively an X receiver. He learned basically one role. That's why a major emphasis when you talk to coaches about him has been, and even Kyle himself, is learning different positions. And we're seeing him play some of the F, playing some of the Z, where he's not just locked in as that isolated receiver in a lot of these looks. So I think when you talk about when Efton, a lot of the times is with the starting offense in some packages, and you don't see Kyle Williams. And Kyle Williams hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities with Drake May. When Kyle's on the field, you'd like him to be a receiver, right? You don't really necessarily want him to have to be a blocker. And if you do want a blocker, you're probably going to default to Chiz. And sometimes that means Chiz is going to be able to get some opportunities off play action or scheme touches or what have you. I just think we need to acknowledge they are different players doing different things in different stages of their development, right? And so I think both of them are safe. I think Chiz is such a high utility player and he's cheap. Why would you want to cut a guy like that? You know what I'm saying? And I don't think he's making it to the practice squad because we sing his praises. You know, if anybody's checking social media, and other teams do, they look at social media to see who's showing off in these camps. So when people get cut, they have an idea.
Deeper into those guys.
Exactly. So I don't think Chisholm's going to get cut because he's so cost effective and does so many things for you. And he's just a great vibe, frankly. And Kyle gives you a skill set that you don't have on the roster. And he's a third round pick who was just an offseason award winner because at the bare minimum, he is doing everything that's asked of him. So I'm sorry to go on like a whole rant or diatribe or whatever, but I'm frustrated by the constant like, oh, where is Kyle Williams? He's going to get cut. Like, he's fine. There are 5 veterans ahead of these guys, and they are all also going to have roles. Obviously, somebody can cut, and that changes things. But I think they're fine. They just do different things, and they're at different stages in their development. Woosah. It'll be okay.
And I don't disagree.
Kyle doesn't get as many opportunities from Drake. I will acknowledge that. It's disappointing, but it's also just the reality of their situation.
No, and I definitely agree that, you know, both of those guys can fill a unique role, you know, at this point in time, you know, on this team, and they are at different stages, right? We saw a little bit more of Kyle Williams last year. He's someone who should be a little bit farther along than Chism, who again was learning multiple roles, is a better blocker. Williams is a deep threat, etc., all that stuff. The thing I think that the conversation goes from, well, it's a crowded wide receiver room. We should keep Boutte because Boutte's been awesome. So there has to be somebody on the outside, and fans and even media are trying to figure out who that person's going to be. And if it's not Kayshon Boutte, it's going to be tough to keep all of them in the same room. And so I think that's kind of where the conversation goes. And then it gets to, well, from here, let's track the reps. Let's see who's repping where these guys end up, etc. And then it kind of turns into that. But I do still think that when push comes to shove, I have a hard time thinking Boutte is going to be on the week one roster, just given that, you know, all the smoke that's been around it, the fact that he does likely want to get a trade out of here, and good on him for showing up and showing out and doing his thing, and not just, you know, holding out or being like, I want to publicly essentially saying I don't want to be here, but rather just continuing to grind and things like that. But I did think it was telling too. We didn't really talk about it, but Drake's conversation on Sirius XM where he outlined the entire wide receiver room, and Kayshon Boutte was last on the list. And he literally said, and lastly, Boutte. And it was strange. Yeah, it is kind of strange, but like it's probably just almost the biggest kept secret in the locker room that Keyshawn's probably not going to be here, and they're just trying to figure out a way for him not to be. But then it's also like, well, why are you going to take reps away from other guys? So it's a strange situation they have on the wide receiver room. We've continued to cover it as much as possible. It's still better than the Tyquan Thornton and N'Keal Harry rooms of the world that we used to have around here. But they do kind of have a dilemma on their hands, and it's going to be interesting to see how they ultimately get through it.
Embarrassment of riches. Great problem.
Exactly. All right, I'm going to tell you guys about Prize Picks here, and then we'll answer some mailbag questions before we get out of here. But as you guys know, this episode and every episode of Patriots Daily and everything else here on the CLNS Media Network is powered by our friends over at Prize Picks. It's a scorching hot sports summer, and you can make all of your picks on Prize Picks. Women's basketball, baseball, and even preseason football heating up. Begins this week, Thursday night. We got the Hall of Fame game, Panthers versus Cardinals. We will have some picks for you for that one tomorrow here on the channel. But for now, there's still women's basketball. There's baseball. Trade deadline just happened. Guys moving all around the diamond, all around the country. Red Sox make some moves. Excited for that. And if you want to follow along with the Red Sox game and put a little Prize Picks lineup in on it, you can do so right now on the Prize Picks app. And all you got to do is download it today and use code CLNS. And you will get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. Again, just download the app today and use code CLNS to get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. All right. Shall we open up this mailbag, Taylor?
Should we get the super chat first?
I did not see a super chat. We do have a super chat. Okay. Shout out super chat. Super chats are always first. Thank you for the $5 at Yellow Wing Ed Viero. Yellow Winged Viero, I mean. I would cut. Yeah, I read that. That's winged, not wing Ed. It's been a long couple of days. All right, I would cut Williams before I would trade Booty. Booty's been a stud during training camp. We shouldn't just trade him away for pennies. Your thoughts?
You shouldn't trade him away for pennies, and I think that's why the Patriots are taking their time, waiting until the best potential offer presents itself. And look, I think there's a chance that Booty could be on the Week 1 roster. But the trade deadline is going to be the time. Right. So, like, if they had to keep 7 receivers, you would do it with the thought that it's by the trade deadline, one of these guys is going to be gone, and we still do need the bodies in this room. So, I don't think it's going to be pennies that they get in return. Like, if it's a 5th-round pick, I don't think that's going to be getting it done. And they're going to try to do right by Boot Keyshawn, I think. Yeah, and I think that Keyshawn would probably want to go to a situation where he can make the most money he can next season. But in terms of cutting, like, Kyle Williams is not getting cut. He's a 3rd-round pick who has a skill set that other people on the roster don't have. He could end up being the best separator in that entire room. So obviously that is projection, a lot of projection, because he hasn't done much with Drake May outside of some significant splash plays. But NFL is all about consistency. So yeah, I agree. Don't trade it for pennies. But as much as I like Keyshawn, I don't think I'm cutting a 3rd-round pick for a guy with 1 year left on his deal. That's bad economics. Yeah,
it is. It's just looking at the money and the the draft situation, things like contract situation, like that is bad for business. I think it's the what people and what I guess fans have seen from Keyshawn Booty versus it's sort of only being projection right now for Kyle Williams. I think that's the struggle here. But and I get it. I think it makes sense. I think Keyshawn's shown more with Drake May. I think that's clear. But he is on the last year of his deal. He is older. Kyle Williams, again, hasn't done a ton, but has the skill set to potentially be a great, like you said, separator, potential field stretcher for this team. That I think when Keyshawn is ultimately gone, which I think we all believe that is going to be the end game here, Kyle's going to get those opportunities, and then it's going to be up to him to make the most of it. And when you say cutting him, him being a 3rd-round pick last season, trading him would be one thing. I don't know if that's necessarily a scenario, but when you look at like Jalen Polk last year, who, by the way, his retirement, I know we said a lot of bad things about him, and I hope he's in a good place.
We?
What? Please.
I tried, man. I tried. I put up with John's post game.
Okay.
For a year. So I tried, man. I tried to hold out.
You did. You're right. I know, but the point being is, I mean, again, I didn't think Jalen Polk was not a good player here. That's obvious.
Yes.
Hope he's in a good spot with retirement, not a bad spot, because did have a lot of potential coming out of college. Was a second round pick, and now he's walking away from the game. Hopefully, it's a good thing for him, and maybe trying to try something new. But on that topic, like Polk was a second round pick, and it was going to be hard to believe the Patriots would actually cut him going into year 2, which. They end up trading him, get a pick swap for it. They originally IR'd him, so they kind of made it work there. But just strictly value-wise and business-wise, it does not make a lot of sense to give up this early on Kyle Williams, especially because there's no off-field concern or issues. Like you mentioned the award winner. Like he's a good person. He's a player with a lot of potential. It's not like somebody who would just, you cut third-round picks going into their second year if, they're doing shitty stuff off the field. They're not a good teammate. They're causing problems.
And there's no injury history either.
Right. So
Polk was hurt, got on the field, and then got hurt again.
Yes. Yeah. So different scenarios, but it felt like a good comparison, just second round, third round pick there.